Brilliance Audio.
See It End by Brianna Labuskes. Performed by Kate Marson. Dr. Gretchen White wondered if her steak knife was sharp enough to open up her date's carotid artery. She lovingly pictured the warm splash of blood that would follow, the flap of serrated skin, the goldfish gape of his mouth. "So then you own the digital image," the man went on, unaware that he was one more migraine-inducing story away from a violent end. For most people, the threat was hyperbolic, but Gretchen knew she had to remove herself from the situation before her control truly slipped. She was often just a hairbreadth away from consigning that non-violent part of her diagnosis as a sociopath to hell. She had made it to 38 years old without having murdered anyone, though, and this sad excuse for a dinner companion wasn't going to break her streak. Gretchen stood while the man was mid-sentence and walked away from the table, the quick click of her stilettos matching the pulse that had spiked with rage. From a lifetime of experience, she knew the emotion was disproportionate, knew it would simmer into almost nothing if she gave it even a little bit of time. But while it burned bright, she decided she would aim it at the person who should really take the blame for tonight. Detective Lauren Marconi, who tried to convince Gretchen she was normal, that she could sit in a trendy restaurant and pretend politeness for the length of an entire dinner. Gretchen had to put up with things far worse than a dull date, both in her personal life and as a consultant for the Boston Police Department. But she had a finely tuned appreciation for the cost and the benefit of any given situation. The BPD cases helped scratch an itch that she would have had to turn to more dubious methods to satiate. They were worth the effort it took to rein in her impulses. In tonight's cost-benefit ratio, the benefit of sitting through the rest of her current date would be a romp in bed that, given the way he talked about himself all night, would likely be disappointing. Walking away was the right choice for everyone involved. Outside the restaurant, Gretchen stopped, leaned against the brick wall, dug her fingernails into her palms to give herself something to focus on besides the savage desire that still whispered sweet nothings in her ear. When that didn't work, she dipped her hand into her purse for her phone and opened the text thread with Marconi. The latest message was just a string of knife emojis that Gretchen had sent while her date had been talking at her. He hadn't faltered one bit at her deliberate rudeness. The message to Marconi was marked as read, but she hadn't responded. Gretchen's finger hovered over the call icon. Marconi usually answered her texts when she saw them, even if it was just with an eye roll. After a moment's debate, Gretchen put the phone to sleep. She wasn't in the mood to burn bridges, and that's what would happen if she talked to Marconi right now. Instead, she just rested her head against the brick wall. The sky had deepened from burnished gold to velvet blue during the time Gretchen had been inside, and a light mist cooled her overheated skin as she turned her face toward the newborn moon. "You're not as dangerous or mysterious as you like to think, Dr. White," Marconi had told her 6 months ago, after they'd cleared Gretchen's name from 3 decades-old murder charges. At the time, riding high on her own impeccable control, Gretchen had nearly agreed. She almost hated Marconi now for giving her that hope. This dinner was one in a line of Gretchen's stabs at normality since she learned she hadn't killed her aunt in cold blood as a child. Not all her attempts ended this way, but enough did that Gretchen wondered why she was chasing normal so hard. Yet it was a hard habit to break once you started. She pushed off the wall and then turned down the alley where she'd parked her Porsche. Despite the fact that she'd left it unlocked, it was still there, untouched. Gretchen let herself enjoy the thrill of that. Everyone always walked around so scared, clutching purses and pearls and installing every deadbolt on the market. It was so much more interesting to just see what would happen when she let fate take the wheel. She hadn't lost a car yet. Except tonight there was someone waiting for her in the passenger seat. In the dim light of the alley, it was just a shadow, but as Gretchen moved forward, it shifted into a familiar shape. "I'm sending you some kind of bill for emotional trauma for that date," Gretchen said after she yanked open the door. Marconi's dark bangs were plastered to her forehead, her eyes deep pools of an emotion Gretchen couldn't read. Her whole body sagged as if she'd been holding herself in perfect stillness, waiting for Gretchen. "Or not," Gretchen murmured, scanning her for injuries. There was dried blood in the beds of her fingernails, on her shirt. "Who did you kill?" Gretchen asked, because it wasn't a question of if.